You may catch yourself pausing before reacting lately, and that pause is everything. Chomsky's main contrast is exactly between these two states of being: the manufactured, conditioned reaction versus the independent, critically engaged thought. The knee-jerk reaction is the goal of propaganda. It is a predictable, emotional response that can be easily guided and manipulated. The thoughtful response is its antidote. It is slower. It seeks out primary sources. It considers alternative viewpoints, and it questions the underlying motives behind why a story is being told in a specific way at a specific time. We start noticing these patterns in our everyday life, not just in politics, but in advertising, in social media trends, and in conversations with friends and family. Gradually, this leads us to the third phase, a new and much sturdier clarity. This is not a return to the simple ignorance of the beginning, but an earned understanding. The world does not become simple again, but we become better equipped to navigate its complexity. We develop a kind of mental filter, a healthy skepticism that is not about cynicism, but about diligence. We learn to identify the Barnum statements, the flattering and vague claims designed to secure our buy-in, and we see how they are used to manufacture our consent for ideas and policies we might not otherwise support. We begin to consciously seek out dissenting voices and independent journalism, not because we necessarily agree with them, but because we understand that a full picture requires looking outside the frame provided by the major outlets. This new clarity is empowering. It moves us from feeling like victims of a system to becoming active participants in our own understanding. We reclaim a measure of intellectual sovereignty, realizing that our consent is not something to be manufactured for us, but something we must consciously and thoughtfully give based on our own rigorous inquiry. The journey is challenging, but the destination is a more authentic and self-determined engagement with the world. Through this discomfort, we begin to notice a subtle shift in our internal weather. The initial resistance, that powerful urge to retreat back into the familiar, starts to lose its grip. It's like the moment you've been walking in a cold wind, shoulders hunched, and then you turn a corner into a sheltered spot warmed by the sun. You don't relax all at once, but you feel the possibility of relaxation, the promise that you won't have to clench against the elements forever. This is the first real hint that the journey is worth it, that the unease is not a stop sign, but a landmark on a map we are learning to read. It signals that we are moving from the known into the new, and our psyche is doing its necessary work of recalibrating. This process of recalibration is deeply personal and yet universally human. We all have our own unique set of old shoes that pinch, those worn-out beliefs and perspectives we've been trudging around in for years. They are familiar. We know their every rub and blister, but we mistake that familiarity for comfort. The discomfort of growth is simply the feeling of beginning to untie those laces, of wiggling toes that have been cramped for so long, they'd almost forgotten what space feels like. It's a tender, almost vulnerable sensation. And in that vulnerability, our minds often try to protect us by amplifying doubts. Is this new path right? What if I'm making a mistake? What will people think? These aren't signs of failure. They are the birth pangs of a new understanding. As we sit with this feeling, without immediately scrambling to make it go away, something quiet and remarkable begins to happen. The mental chatter, the committee of past voices and inherited fears starts to quieten. It doesn't vanish, but its volume decreases from a shout to a murmur, something you can acknowledge without having to obey. In this newfound quiet, we create space for our own voice to finally be heard. This is where we often encounter a fascinating psychological phenomenon, something known as the Barnum effect. It's that tendency we all have to accept vague, general personality descriptions as uniquely accurate to ourselves. We read a horoscope or take a quick online quiz and nod along thinking, yes, That's so me, because it's crafted to be true for almost anyone. But here's the beautiful twist in our journey. As we become more aware of our own authentic thoughts and feelings, separated from the noise, the Barnum effect loses its power over us. We start to see those vague descriptions for what they are: pleasant generalities, not profound truths. This awakening to our own specificity is incredibly empowering. You'll likely find daily decisions coming easier, not because the decisions themselves are less complex, but because you are less clouded by the need to fit into some external expectation or generic mold. The question shifts from "what should I do?" to "what feels right for me?" That is a monumental change in orientation, moving from external validation to internal guidance. This internal guidance system, once tuned up and trusted, begins to filter our entire experience of the world. Many notice old frustrations don't bother them as much. The driver who cuts you off, the long line at the grocery store, the minor criticism from a colleague. These things begin to roll off with a new ease. It's not that you become passive or stop caring. It's that your center of gravity is no longer so easily knocked off balance. Your sense of self is no longer contingent on everything around you behaving perfectly. You are rooted in something more stable, something that you've built from the inside out through this very process of uncomfortable reflection. The small annoyances of life simply don't have the same weight they once did, because you are carrying less of the unnecessary baggage that made you top-heavy with reactivity. This lightness translates into our relationships as well. When we are not so busy defending a fragile ego or performing a version of ourselves we think is expected, we can show up more genuinely for the people we care about. We listen better because we're not just waiting for our turn to speak and prove ourselves. We offer advice less frequently and empathy more readily because we understand that most people aren't looking for answers as much as they are looking for connection. We stop trying to fit people into the boxes of our expectations and start appreciating them for the complex, messy, beautiful individuals they are. This is the ripple effect of personal growth. It never stays contained within us. It touches everyone we interact with, creating little pockets of authenticity in a world that often feels manufactured. The journey, then, is not one of becoming a different person, but of uncovering the person you always were beneath the layers of conditioning, fear, and borrowed ideas. It's an archaeological dig into your own soul, brushing away the dust to reveal the contours of your true character. Each moment of discomfort faced is another brushstroke cleared away. Each old narrative questioned is another shard of pottery carefully lifted and examined. And what we find is not some perfect, finished statue, but something far more valuable, a work in progress, unique, flawed, and entirely our own. This is the source of a deep and unshakable confidence that has nothing to do with arrogance. It is simply the quiet assurance of knowing who you are and, just as importantly, who you are not.